Look what just crawled out of the ghetto! Private Chad Morrison's shout echoed across Fort Harrison's gate. He hooted loud, scratching his armpits. Private Tyler Bennett doubled over, laughing. Morrison blocked her path, phone out, snapping photos. "Boys, check this out. King Kong's sister trying to sneak on base." Bennett made exaggerated ape gestures. "Should we call animal control?" The black woman in civilian clothes stood silent. She reached for her ID. Morrison waved her off. "Fake ID won't work here. This is a military base, not a food stamp center." She spoke quietly. "I have proper identification. Please check your system." "Sure you do." Morrison smirked. "And I'm the president. Get lost before we arrest you for trespassing." Have you ever watched someone destroy themselves in 30 seconds without realizing it? Rebecca Anderson had driven 3 hours to reach Fort Harrison that morning. Her rental car sat in the visitor lot now, engine cooling in the Georgia heat. She'd left her uniform at the hotel deliberately. The Pentagon had given her explicit orders. General William Hayes had called her to Washington 72 hours earlier. His office overlooked the Potomac, windows framing the river's gray waters. "Fort Harrison has a problem," Hayes had said, sliding a folder across his desk. 3 formal complaints in 6 months, all dismissed, all from black personnel. Anderson had opened the folder. Photos of young soldiers, their statements detailed harassment, slurs, hostile environment. Each report ended the same way. No action taken. Insufficient evidence. Complainant counseled on sensitivity. "I need someone they won't see coming," Hayes continued. "Someone who can assess the real culture, not the one they'll show an inspector." Anderson understood immediately. Go undercover. Arrive in civilian clothes. See what really happens when the command isn't watching. She'd accepted without hesitation. 25 years in uniform had taught her that racism hides well in hierarchies. It waits for moments when rank isn't visible, when authority seems absent. Now she stood at the gate checkpoint, watching Private Morrison perform for his audience. His confidence told her everything. He'd done this before. He expected no consequences. Fort Harrison sprawled across 15,000 acres of red Georgia clay. 15,000 personnel are trained here annually. The base prepared soldiers for specialized operations worldwide. Recent budget increases totaled $200 million. Congressional oversight was constant. Media attention is frequent, which meant discrimination here wasn't just wrong. It was a strategic liability. Anderson noted every detail. Morrison's body language, Bennett's eager participation, the nervous laughter from other recruits. Most telling was Sergeant Jake Sullivan in the guard booth. He watched the entire interaction through his window. Did nothing. His smirk said he approved. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was culture. Morrison stepped closer, invading her space. His breath smelled like energy drinks and entitlement. "Are you deaf or just stupid? I said leave." Anderson held out her military ID card through the checkpoint window. Her voice stayed level. "Please scan this in your system." Morrison barely glanced at it. "Yeah, right. Nice try with the fake." He turned to Bennett. "They're getting creative now. Fake military IDs." Bennett peered at the card. "Looks real to me." "They all look real, idiot. That's the point." Morrison pushed the ID back toward her. "The only officer you need is animal control." Sullivan finally emerged from the guard booth. 35 years old, 15 years of service, sergeant stripes on his sleeve. He should have stopped this minutes ago. Instead, he crossed his arms. "Ma'am, you're causing a disturbance. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Anderson's eyes met his. "Sergeant Sullivan, I'm requesting you properly verify my identification before making that determination." Sullivan's eyebrow raised slightly. She'd used his name. That gave him pause. But Morrison's laughter pulled him back. "Sarge, don't waste time on this. She's just trying to make trouble." Sullivan nodded slowly. "Yeah. Move along, ma'am." before this becomes a bigger problem for you. Anderson pulled out her phone, started recording. Morrison noticed immediately. Oh, hell no. He reached for her phone. You can't record on federal property without authorization. She stepped back, keeping the phone out of reach. I'm documenting a potential civil rights violation. That's protected activity under federal law. Morrison's face flushed red. Civil rights? You're trespassing. Sullivan, call the MPs. Get her arrested. Sullivan pulled his radio. His voice crackled through static. Gate 1 to dispatch. Need MP support. We have an individual refusing to leave federal property. Anderson noted the time on her phone. 8:23. 9 minutes since Morrison first mocked her. 9 minutes of documented harassment. 9 minutes that would cost them everything. She walked slowly back toward her rental car. Morrison and Bennett followed, emboldened. Sullivan trailed behind, radio in hand. Other personnel had gathered now. Morning shift change brought soldiers streaming through the gate. They slowed, watching. Some pulled out phones. The scene was becoming public. Morrison played to his growing audience. Make sure she actually leaves. Probably gonna try sneaking back in. Bennett added, should we search her car? Might have stolen something. Anderson reached her vehicle, unlocked it, sat in the driver's seat, left the door open. She wasn't leaving. She was waiting for the military police, for witnesses, for the system to reveal itself completely. Because General Hayes hadn't just sent her to observe. He'd sent her a document, to build a case so airtight that denial became impossible. Morrison stood in front of her car now, blocking her exit. He planted his feet wide, arms crossed, the victor savoring his win. He had no idea he'd already lost everything. The military police arrived in 2 vehicles, lights flashing red and blue. Sergeant Marcus Harris stepped out first, adjusting his duty belt. Corporal Emma Davis followed, notepad ready. Morrison rushed toward them, voice urgent. Sarge, thank God. This woman's been trying to force entry for 20 minutes, refused multiple lawful orders to leave. Harris scanned the scene. Dozens soldiers watching. A woman sitting calmly in a rental car. Morrison was sweating despite the morning cool. What exactly happened here, Private? She approached with fake military credentials. When I told her to leave, she became aggressive, started recording us, making accusations. Bennett nodded hard. It's true, Sergeant. We followed protocol exactly. Sullivan added his authority. I witnessed everything. Private Morrison acted appropriately. This individual is trespassing. Harris walked to Anderson's car. She remained seated, hands visible on the steering wheel. Ma'am, step out of the vehicle. Anderson complied smoothly. No sudden movements. She stood relaxed, feet shoulder-width apart. May I see your identification? She handed him her military ID card. Harris examined it under the morning sun. His expression shifted. This appears legitimate, ma'am. Morrison interrupted. It's fake, Sarge. I already verified it. Harris turned slowly. You verified it how, Private? I looked at it. Obviously fake. Did you scan it in the system? Morrison hesitated. Didn't need to. Did you scan it? Yes or no? No, but... Harris walked to his patrol vehicle and pulled out the ID scanner. The device beeped as he swiped Anderson's card. Then he waited. The computer system at Fort Harrison ran on ancient servers. Loading took time. Morrison watched nervously. Bennett shifted foot to foot. Sullivan maintained his confident posture. 20 seconds passed. 30. 45. The crowd grew larger. Morning formation was in 15 minutes. Soldiers detoured to watch. Some pulled out phones, recording. Anderson stood perfectly still. The sun climbed higher, heat building. Sweat formed on her neck, but she didn't wipe it. She simply waited. Harris stared at his screen. His face went pale. He looked at Anderson, then Morrison, then back. Corporal Davis leaned over. "What's it say?" Harris stepped out and approached Sullivan. His voice dropped low. "Sarge, we have a problem." Sullivan's confidence cracked. "What kind of problem?" "The kind that ends careers." Harris showed him the screen. Sullivan read. His mouth opened, closed. No words came. Morrison couldn't stand it. "What? What does it say?" Harris ignored him. He turned to Anderson, his posture shifting to attention. "Ma'am, I apologize for the delay." "Don't." Anderson's voice cut clean. "I want to know exactly what Private Morrison told you." Harris glanced at Morrison. "He said you attempted unauthorized entry with fraudulent credentials. And you believed him without verification?" "I followed the assessment of gate security personnel." "Which means you trusted his word over proper procedure." Harris had no response. Anderson continued. "Corporal Davis, document the following. At 0814 hours, I approached with valid military identification. Private Morrison refused to verify it. Instead, he made monkey gestures and hooting sounds. He took my photograph and posted it to social media. When I requested proper verification, he called me stupid and deaf. Sergeant Sullivan witnessed this and ordered me to leave." Davis wrote frantically. Morrison exploded. "That's not what happened. She's lying." Anderson pulled out her phone. "Would you like to see the video? I have 9 minutes of footage." Sullivan stepped forward. "Ma'am, let's discuss this reasonably. These young men made an error in judgment." "An error?" Anderson's voice stayed level. "Sergeant, if a white woman in civilian clothes approached this gate, would Private Morrison have made monkey sounds at her?" Silence. "Would he have called her ghetto trash?" More silence. Sullivan tried differently. "With respect, ma'am, rank has to be visible for respect to apply." "To what? Treat human beings with basic dignity? That's conditional on uniforms?" The crowd had swelled to 30 soldiers. Every word carried. This was public education now. Harris made a decision. "Ma'am, I need to call this in to the duty officer." "Excellent idea." Harris returned to his vehicle. His radio crackled. "Gate 1 to base operations. Need the duty officer immediately." While they waited, Morrison deleted his social media post frantically. But screenshots lived forever. 20 recruits had already shared it. Bennett looked sick. "Morrison, what did that screen say?" Morrison ignored him, hands shaking. Sullivan moved closer to Anderson. "Ma'am, I'm asking you. Let's handle this quietly. No need to blow this up." "I'm not an NCO, Sergeant." Sullivan blinked. "Ma'am? And we're not handling this quietly. We're handling this correctly." A black SUV pulled through the gate fast. Captain Elena Foster stepped out, uniform crisp, expression confused. She'd received a cryptic text. "Problem at Gate 1. Anderson." Foster froze when she saw the scene. "Colonel? What's going on?" Morrison laughed. Actually laughed. "Lady, I don't know what game you're playing, but that's not a colonel." Foster stared at him. "Private, that's Colonel Rebecca Anderson. She's the base commander." The words landed like artillery. Morrison's laugh died. Bennett's face went gray. Sullivan's posture collapsed. Harris closed his eyes briefly. "Ma'am, I sincerely apologize." "Save it." Anderson's voice stayed calm. "Corporal Davis, add to your report. Despite proper identification, 3 soldiers chose to believe I was a criminal rather than a commander. They chose mockery over verification." Foster approached, still processing. "Sir, I don't understand. Why are you in civilian clothes?" "I'm conducting an assessment, Captain, evaluating how this base treats people when they think rank isn't present." Foster looked at Morrison, at Sullivan. Understanding spread across her face. "Oh my God." "Indeed." Anderson turned to Harris. "Sergeant, I want Private Morrison, Private Bennett, and Sergeant Sullivan confined to barracks immediately. Full restriction pending investigation. Harris snapped to attention. Yes, ma'am. Morrison found his voice. You can't do this. This was entrapment. Anderson's eyes fixed on him. Cold. Steady. I provided valid identification. I spoke respectfully. I followed every regulation. You chose your actions, Private. Nobody set you up. But I didn't know. You didn't know I had rank. So you felt free to treat me as subhuman. Let me be clear. If you'd treated any person this way, regardless of their position, it would be wrong. The fact that I'm your commander simply makes it formally punishable. Bennett spoke up, voice breaking. Ma'am, I'm sorry. Morrison was doing it and I didn't want to. Didn't want to do what? Be different? Stand alone? Have integrity? That's not an excuse, Private. That's a confession. Sullivan tried once more. Colonel Anderson, these boys are 22 years old, from small towns. Stop. Anderson's command voice cut through. Stop making excuses for racism. They chose to mock. They chose to humiliate. They chose to post it online. Those were decisions, Sergeant, and decisions have consequences. She turned to Foster. Captain, I want a full formation called. Every soldier on this base, 1,600 hours, base theater. Attendance is mandatory. Foster nodded, pulling out her phone. Yes, sir. Anderson addressed the crowd. 30 faces. Some were shocked. Some are ashamed. Some recording everything. Let this be clear to everyone watching. Fort Harrison has a new standard as of today. Dignity is not conditional. Respect is not optional. And racism will not be tolerated in any form. She paused. I'm your commander, but I'm also a black woman. If you can't respect both those facts simultaneously, you're in the wrong uniform. Harris escorted Morrison, Bennett, and Sullivan toward the MP vehicles. Morrison walked like a man already convicted. Bennett cried openly. Sullivan's face showed nothing. Anderson returned to her rental car. Foster approached carefully. Sir, are you okay? Anderson looked at her. I've been called worse, Captain, by better people. That doesn't make this okay. No, it doesn't. Anderson started the engine. But it does make it familiar. And that's the problem we're going to fix. She drove through the gate finally. Past the guard booth where Sullivan had watched her be degraded. Past the checkpoint where Morrison had made monkey sounds. Into the base, she commanded. Where 3 soldiers had just learned that consequences are real and underestimating, a black woman destroys everything. Morrison sat in the back of the MP vehicle, handcuffs biting into his wrists. His mind raced, searching for escape routes. This couldn't be real. Couldn't be happening. He turned to Harris through the metal grate. Sergeant, this is wrong. She baited us. Came here in regular clothes on purpose. Harris kept his eyes on the road. Private, I suggest you stop talking. No, listen. She set a trap. How's that fair? We were doing our jobs. Bennett spoke from the other seat, voice shaking. Morrison, shut up. Just shut up. I'm not taking this. My dad's a lawyer. We'll sue. Entrapment, that's what this is. Sullivan sat silent in the second vehicle behind them, staring straight ahead. His 15 years of service scrolling through his mind. The pension he'd almost reached. His wife. His kids. All of it is dissolving. At the barracks, Harris removed Morrison's phone first, then Bennett's. Standard procedure for restriction. Morrison grabbed it. You can't take that. I have rights. Harris held it out of reach. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it. I'm calling my congressman. This is an abuse of power. Davis logged the phones into evidence bags. As she handled Morrison's device, the screen lit up with notifications. Dozens of them. Comments on his deleted post. But the post wasn't gone. People screenshot it, shared it, it was spreading. It was. One comment read, "Bro, you just mocked your own commander?" Another, "This is that new base CO. You're so fired." A third, "Racist trash. Hope you rot." Davis showed Harris. He shook his head slowly. The situation was worse than Morrison knew. Morrison caught a glimpse of the screen, his face drained of remaining color. "Wait, delete those. People are taking it wrong." "What's wrong?" Davis asked. "The post. It was a joke. Just guys messing around." "You made monkey sounds at a black woman and called it a joke?" "She wasn't in uniform. How was I supposed to know?" Davis's voice went cold. "You weren't supposed to know her rank to treat her like a human being, Private." They locked Morrison and Bennett in separate rooms. Standard isolation protocol. No communication. No coordination of stories. Morrison paced his small quarters, 8 by 10 feet. Bed, desk, locker. The walls closed in. He pulled out his laptop, tried to log into social media. Account suspended. He tried his backup account. Also suspended. His roommate's laptop sat on the opposite desk. Morrison grabbed it, logged into a friend's account. The post had gone viral. 50,000 shares. Comments in the hundreds of thousands. His face is visible from several angles. His name is tagged. His hometown was identified. Someone had found his high school yearbook photo. Posted it with the caption, "This is Chad Morrison. Remember his face. Remember what he did." His mother's Facebook was getting bombarded. His father's law office website crashed from traffic. His younger sister's Instagram is filled with messages calling her brother a racist. Morrison slammed the laptop closed. His hands shook. This wasn't supposed to happen. He was supposed to serve 4 years, get his benefits, go home. Not this. A knock on the door. Morrison jumped. "Private Morrison." Harris's voice came through. "Base Jag is here. You're entitled to legal counsel." The lawyer entered. Captain Nathan Pierce, 38, military attorney for 12 years. He'd seen cases like this. None ended well for the accused. Pierce sat down, opened his briefcase. "Private, I'm here to explain your situation." "I want civilian counsel. My dad's a lawyer." "That's your right. But you should understand what you're facing first." Pierce pulled out papers. "You're being charged under Article 89, disrespect toward a superior commissioned officer. Article 92, failure to obey order or regulation. Article 134, conduct unbecoming. Additionally, there will likely be federal civil rights violation charges." Morrison's leg bounced rapidly. "But I didn't know she was an officer." "Doesn't matter for the civil rights charges. You discriminated based on race in a federal facility. That's a federal crime regardless of her rank." It was a misunderstanding. Pierce showed him a tablet. "Is this your social media post?" Morrison saw his own photo, his own caption, his own hashtags. "Yeah, but did you make the sounds and gestures described in the MP report?" Silence. "Private Morrison, did you or did you not make monkey sounds and gestures toward Colonel Anderson?" Morrison's voice came small. "Yes." "Did you block her vehicle?" "I was doing security. Yes or no?" "Yes." Pierce leaned back. "Then you don't have a misunderstanding. You have a confession. The entire incident was recorded by multiple witnesses. It's on video. Your own phone contained the social media post. This is what we call an airtight case. So what do? You accept responsibility. You show remorse. You hope for leniency. But Private, I need you to understand. Your military career is over. The only question is whether you face prison time." Morrison's face crumbled. "Prison? For what? Making a joke?" "For committing a federal hate crime on federal property against a superior officer." Pierce stood. "Think carefully about how you want to proceed. I'll be back tomorrow." Across the base, Sullivan faced his own reckoning. His wife, Sarah, arrived within an hour, called by his command. She walked into the conference room where he sat, still in uniform, shoulders slumped. Jake, what happened? Sullivan tried to explain. Made it sound reasonable. A woman approached without a uniform. They followed protocol. She overreacted. Sarah listened. Then she pulled out her phone, showed him the viral post. Is this what you call protocol? Sullivan saw Morrison's photo, read the caption. I didn't post that. But you watched it happen. You did nothing. Sarah's voice shook. 15 years, Jake. 15 years of me supporting every move, every deployment, every sacrifice. And you threw it away for what? To protect a racist? I wasn't protecting. You stood there. You watched. Then you tried to cover it up. Sarah stood. The news is calling. Reporters at our house. Neighbors asking questions. Your son called from college crying. He's being harassed because his dad's the sergeant who enabled a hate crime. Sullivan's head dropped into his hands. I was trying to keep the peace. You were taking the easy path. You saw wrong and chose comfort. Sarah moved toward the door. I can't do this anymore, Jake. I won't. Sarah, wait. I'm taking the kids to my mother's. Don't call. Don't come by. Get a lawyer. You're going to need one. She left. The door clicked shut. Sullivan sat alone with the wreckage of his life. Meanwhile, Bennett wrote a statement in his quarters. His hands shook as he formed words. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I knew it was wrong, but I was scared to be different. Morrison was my buddy, and I didn't want to lose that. I laughed when I should have stopped him. I joined in when I should have walked away. There's no excuse. I was a coward. I let fear of being alone matter more than doing what's right. I'm ashamed. I'm sorry. I know sorry isn't enough. He folded the paper, put it in an envelope, addressed it to Colonel Anderson. Knew it wouldn't change anything, wrote it anyway. At 1600 hours, 200 soldiers packed the base theater. Anderson stood backstage reviewing her notes. Foster stood beside her. Sir, are you sure about this? Making it public? Anderson looked at her. Captain, what happened this morning happens every day on bases across this country, usually in smaller ways, usually without witnesses, usually without consequences. Today we have video evidence, multiple witnesses, and a clear chain of custody. This is our chance to set a standard. Some people will say you're being too harsh. Some people will always say that. Anderson straightened her uniform. But the soldiers who've suffered in silence, the ones who filed complaints that got dismissed, they'll know someone finally listened. That matters more. She walked onto the stage. The room fell silent instantly. She wore her full dress uniform now. 25 years of ribbons, combat deployments, leadership awards, the Bronze Star, the Purple Heart. She stood at the podium and began. At 0814 hours today, I was denied entry to my own base. The room stayed silent. She pressed play on the video. Morrison's voice filled the theater. Look what wandered in from the jungle. The monkey sounds echoed through the speakers, the hooting, the laughter. This ain't the zoo, sweetheart. Soldiers shifted uncomfortably. Some looked down. Others stared at the screen, horrified. The video continued. 9 minutes of harassment. 9 minutes of mockery. 9 minutes that would change Fort Harrison forever. When it ended, Anderson spoke into the silence. I am Colonel Rebecca Anderson. I command this installation. I have 25 years of service to this country. I've deployed to combat zones. I've led soldiers in war. I've earned every rank, every ribbon, every position through merit and sacrifice. She paused. This morning I was treated as less than human by soldiers under my command. She showed Sullivan's attempt to confiscate phones. Wright's suggestion of mutual fault. The text messages are planning to teach her a lesson. This isn't about me. It's about every soldier of color who's experienced this. Every person who's been judged by their skin before their character. Every time someone chose assumptions over dignity. The room remained frozen. Private Morrison, Private Bennett, and Sergeant Sullivan are confined pending court-martial. They will face the full weight of military justice. Not because I'm vengeful, but because actions have consequences, and racism will not be tolerated at Fort Harrison. She let that sink in. If you cannot serve alongside people who don't look like you with respect and dignity, you are in the wrong profession. This is not negotiable. This is not optional. This is the standard. Anderson looked across the faces. Anyone who has experienced discrimination here, file a report. It will be investigated properly. Anyone who witnesses it, document it. You will be protected. That's my promise. She stepped back from the podium. The room erupted, not in applause, in murmurs, whispers, the sound of a culture cracking open. Anderson let the silence stretch. 200 soldiers sat motionless, eyes locked on the screen where Morrison's face remained frozen mid-laugh. She walked to the front of the stage. No podium between her and them now. Private Morrison, stand up. Morrison rose from his seat in the front row. His legs shook. Every eye turned to him. You mocked me. You called me a monkey. You blocked my vehicle. You posted my humiliation online for entertainment. Morrison's voice cracked. Ma'am, I didn't know. You didn't know I was your commanding officer. But you knew I was a human being. You knew I deserved basic respect. That should have been enough. She turned to Bennett. Private Bennett, stand! Bennett stood, tears already streaming. You participated. You laughed. You made the sounds with him. You said nothing when you could have shown integrity. You chose belonging over doing right. That's cowardice. Bennett's shoulders shook. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry. Don't erase the video. It doesn't restore my dignity. But it's a start. She turned to Sullivan. Sergeant Sullivan, stand. Sullivan rose slowly, face blank. You enabled them. Then you attempted to cover it up. You intimidated witnesses. You tried to confiscate evidence. Anderson moved directly in front of him. You wore those stripes for 15 years. You knew better. Sullivan's mask cracked. I was protecting the base reputation. You were protecting racism. The words echoed. Sullivan had no response. Anderson pulled out a document. The charges are as follows. Private Morrison, Article 89, disrespect to superior commissioned officer. Article 92, failure to obey lawful order. Article 134, conduct unbecoming. Federal civil rights violations. Morrison's knees buckled. Harris caught his arm. Private Bennett, Articles 89, 92, 134. Bennett nodded, accepting his fate. Sergeant Sullivan, Article 92, Article 93, cruelty and maltreatment. Article 107, false official statements, obstruction of justice. Federal charges for destroying evidence. Sullivan's face went gray. His pension, his retirement, his family, all gone. All three of you are suspended from all duties pending court-martial. Security clearances revoked. Base access terminated. You will be escorted from this facility within the hour. Anderson turned to the wider audience. Some of you think this is harsh, that I'm overreacting. Let me show you something else. The screen changed. Morrison's social media history appeared. Posts dating back 2 years, memes about welfare, jokes about black crime statistics, comments about keeping America American. The theater gasped. This wasn't a mistake. This was a pattern, a belief system. Anderson let them absorb it. He didn't become a racist at Fort Harrison. He arrived that way. We simply gave him a uniform. Bennett's history appeared next. Less extreme, but present. Liked posts, shared memes, silent agreement. Private Bennett says he was scared to stand alone. But look at what he stood with instead. Silence isn't innocence. Sullivan's record came last. 15 years of dismissed complaints, 7 formal reports from black soldiers about unfair treatment, all marked insufficient evidence. Sergeant Sullivan had 19 opportunities to do the right thing. He buried every single one. That's not protecting soldiers. That's protecting a system that harms them. The screen switched to a Pentagon briefing document. Fort Harrison was under investigation. The Pentagon suspected systematic discrimination. I was sent to assess command climate without the mask of rank. Today proved we were right. General William Hayes appeared on screen via video link. His stars gleamed. Fort Harrison will become a model for equality, or it will be restructured entirely. Colonel Anderson has full authority to implement whatever changes are necessary. Anyone who resists will be reassigned. His image disappeared. Anderson pulled out another document. Effective immediately, Fort Harrison implements the following: mandatory bias training for all personnel, independent oversight committee for discrimination complaints, victim advocates at every company level, anonymous reporting system with direct Pentagon pipeline, zero tolerance policy with mandatory investigation triggers. She paused. This isn't punishment. This is accountability. Anderson looked at Morrison one final time. He stood broken, face wet with tears, career destroyed. You had 30 seconds of power over me this morning. You used it for cruelty. Now you'll have years to understand what that cost you. I hope you learn. I hope you change. But that's not my responsibility. Justice is. Military police stepped forward. Harris placed handcuffs on Morrison's wrists. Davis did the same to Bennett. A third MP cuffed Sullivan. They were led through the center aisle. 200 soldiers watched them pass. Some faces showed satisfaction. Others, horror. A few showed recognition of their own biases reflected in Morrison's. The theater doors closed behind them. Anderson turned back to her command. Who we are when we think no one important is watching defines us more than who we pretend to be when rank is visible. She walked off stage. The silence that followed was deafening. Soldiers sat processing what they'd witnessed, a complete reversal of power, a reckoning years overdue. In the span of 8 hours, 3 men had lost everything. Not because of bad luck, not because of vindictiveness, but because they'd shown exactly who they were when they thought it didn't matter. And it turned out it mattered most of all. Fort Harrison would never be the same. 2 weeks later, Fort Benning Military Courtroom. Neutral venue. Morrison entered first, hands cuffed, wearing his service uniform stripped of all insignia. His defense attorney stood. Captain Richard Wells, civilian lawyer his father hired. Your Honor, my client made a terrible mistake. Chad Morrison grew up in rural Montana, population 800. He'd never meaningfully interacted with people of color. The prosecutor, Major Lisa Carter, rose smoothly. Your Honor, ignorance isn't a defense for hate. May I present Exhibit 14? She pulled up Morrison's social media history. 2 years of racist posts, memes, jokes, comments. This shows a pattern of belief, not a moment of ignorance. Wells tried again. The military should rehabilitate, not destroy. Major Carter clicked to the next slide. Morrison's text messages from 3 days before the incident. Morrison: can't wait to get to Georgia. Heard the locals know their place. The courtroom went silent. Wells sat down. The judge reviewed documents for 3 minutes. Nobody moved. The clock ticked. Private Morrison, stand. Morrison stood, legs shaking. You enlisted to serve your country. Instead, you used your position to degrade a fellow American. Worse, you targeted your own commander. You showed no remorse until you faced consequences. He paused. This court finds you guilty on all counts. Dishonorable discharge. 18 months confinement at Fort Leavenworth. $10,000 fine. Federal civil rights conviction on your permanent record. Morrison's mother sobbed. His father sat stone-faced. You will lose all military benefits. Your GI Bill is revoked. Student loans become due immediately. You cannot own firearms. This conviction will appear on every background check for the rest of your life. Morrison's legs gave out. Guards caught him. Do you understand these consequences? Yes, sir. Barely audible. Do you have anything to say? Morrison looked at Anderson in the front row. I'm sorry. I destroyed my life in 30 seconds because I thought someone's skin color made them less than me. I was wrong. The judge nodded. You were. Take him away. Bennett's trial followed. His attorney negotiated a plea deal. Your Honor, my client accepts full responsibility. He's undergone voluntary counseling. The judge looked at Bennett. Private Bennett, you had a choice. You chose wrong, but you owned it quickly. Bennett stood. Sir, I knew it was wrong when I did it. I was a coward. I let fear of being different matter more than being decent. The judge's expression softened slightly. Guilty on reduced charges, bad conduct discharge, 6 months confinement, mandatory diversity counseling upon release. You're young. You have time to become better. Use it. Bennett's voice broke. I will, sir. I promise. Sullivan's trial lasted 3 days. Witnesses detailed his 15-year pattern of dismissing complaints. His attorney argued duty. Sergeant Sullivan maintained unit cohesion. Major Carter called Specialist Marcus Williams to testify. Black soldier, 23 years old. Specialist Williams, tell the court about your complaint. Williams spoke clearly. Sergeant Sullivan was my squad leader. I reported another sergeant calling me slurs. Sullivan told me to stop being sensitive. 2 weeks later, I was transferred. The sergeant who harassed me got promoted. 3 more soldiers testified with identical stories. The judge's verdict was swift. Sergeant Sullivan, you betrayed everything the NCO Corps represents. You enabled hatred. You silenced victims. You obstructed justice. Sullivan stood at attention, face stone. Dishonorable discharge. 24 months confinement. Reduction to E1. Forfeiture of all pay and benefits, including your pension. Sullivan flinched. His pension. 15 years. $500,000 lifetime value. Gone. Your wife has filed for divorce. Your son requested a name change. You did this to yourself. This court is simply acknowledging what you already destroyed. Sullivan was led away. No tears, no words, just hollow eyes. Colonel Wright's hearing happened behind closed doors. Forced retirement at reduced rank, loss of 1 star's pension value, permanent censure. Pentagon statement. Colonel Wright failed in the most basic duty of command, protecting those under his authority. Morrison's family issued a statement. We raised him to be better. We support the sentence. We're ashamed. His hometown newspaper, Local Sons Fall from Grace. Bennett wrote letters from confinement, to Anderson, to his family. I will spend my life making amends. Sullivan wrote nothing, said nothing, felt only the weight of his choices crushing him daily. 3 men, 3 destroyed careers, 3 shattered lives. All because they chose cruelty over dignity in a single morning. 3 weeks after the courts-martial, CNN ran a special report. Anderson Cooper sat across from Colonel Anderson in a Washington studio. Colonel, your story has sparked a national conversation about racism in the military. What do you want people to understand? Anderson looked directly at the camera. This wasn't an isolated incident. Fort Harrison had 47 similar complaints in the past year across all military branches. Only 3 resulted in serious discipline. Cooper leaned forward. 3 out of 47? Correct. Most were dismissed as personality conflicts, cultural differences, misunderstandings. Anderson's voice stayed measured. But when you see the pattern, you understand. The system protects perpetrators more than victims. The segment aired during prime time, 15 million viewers watched. By morning, it had 20 million views online. Congress noticed immediately. Representative Sarah Mitchell from California requested emergency hearings. House Armed Services Committee convened within a week. Anderson testified under oath. Television cameras captured every word. Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee, I come before you not as a victim, but as a witness to systematic failure. She presented data, charts, graphs, documentation spanning 5 years. In 2020, the military received 412 formal discrimination complaints from black service members. 63% were dismissed without investigation. Of those investigated, only 8% resulted in disciplinary action. Representative James Collins from Texas interrupted. Colonel, don't some complaints lack merit? Some do, Congressman. But when 63% are dismissed without investigation, we're not separating valid from invalid. We're simply ignoring them. She clicked to the next slide. In civilian federal agencies, 32% of discrimination complaints proceed to formal investigation. In the military, 12%. We hold ourselves to a lower standard than the institutions we protect. The committee room buzzed. Anderson continued. Private Morrison didn't become a racist at Fort Harrison. His social media showed 2 years of hatred before enlisting. Our screening process missed it. Either way, we failed. Representative Mitchell spoke. What changes would you recommend? Mandatory independent oversight of all discrimination complaints, fast-track investigations with 30-day completion requirements, victim advocates at every installation, anonymous reporting systems that bypass the chain of command, and consequences for leaders who enable discrimination. She paused. Sergeant Sullivan dismissed 19 complaints in 15 years. He was promoted 3 times during that period. We rewarded his silence. That has to end. The hearing lasted 6 hours. By evening, the Secretary of Defense issued a statement. The Department of Defense will implement Operation Equal Service. Colonel Anderson will lead the task force. Changes came swiftly. Within 60 days, new protocols rolled out military-wide. Independent oversight committees established at every major installation, staffed by civilian experts with no command relationships to the accused, victim advocates assigned, trained specialists who guided complainants through the process, anonymous reporting systems launched, complaints filed directly to Pentagon investigators, bypassing local command, investigation timelines mandated, 30 days for preliminary findings, 90 days for completion. No exceptions without written justification. Promotion boards restructured. Officers and NCOs required to demonstrate inclusive leadership. Past discrimination complaints reviewed during promotion consideration. But the media coverage didn't stop with policy changes. 60 Minutes produced a special episode. Racism in the Ranks, the Colonel Anderson story. They interviewed Anderson, showed the gate footage. Morrison's monkey gestures played on national television. The segment interviewed other soldiers, Black, Hispanic, Asian, all with similar stories, all dismissed, all silenced. One sergeant described being called slurs daily for 6 months. His complaint marked insufficient evidence despite witnesses. Another described being passed over for promotion repeatedly while less qualified white soldiers advanced. His complaint was labeled personality conflict. A female captain described harassment combined with racial slurs. She was counseled for lack of resilience. 60 Minutes showed Morrison in prison. Orange jumpsuit, hollow eyes, broken. I thought it was funny, Morrison told the interviewer. I didn't see her as a person. I saw her as less than. That's the truth I have to live with now. The segment ended with Anderson at Fort Harrison, walking through Dignity Gate, the new name for the checkpoint. A bronze plaque mounted there. Enter with honor, serve with integrity, respect all who sacrifice. Anderson touched the plaque. This is for every soldier who's been made to feel less than. Every person who filed a complaint was ignored. We see you. We believe you. We will act. The episode drew 22 million viewers. Highest-rated news program of the year. Social media exploded. Hashtag Colonel Anderson trended worldwide for 3 days. Hashtag DignityGate became a movement. Veterans shared their stories. Hundreds, then thousands. The dam broke. A Black Navy commander described 20 years of subtle discrimination. Finally resigned in frustration. A Hispanic Army major detailed being asked repeatedly if he was legal despite being born in Texas. An Asian Air Force captain described being told she got her position because of quotas, not merit. Despite graduating top of her class, the stories poured in. Undeniable, overwhelming, systematic. Congress responded with legislation. The Military Justice Improvement Act expanded. Mandatory training on implicit bias. Required diversity metrics in evaluations. Established civilian review boards. President's statement from the Oval Office. This behavior has no place in our military or our nation. We defend freedom abroad. We must practice equality at home. Fort Harrison transformed completely. Anderson remained commander. The base became a pilot program for integration excellence. Every soldier underwent real implicit bias training. Scenarios, role-playing, uncomfortable conversations about race and assumption. Monthly town halls became mandatory. Soldiers could speak freely without fear. The anonymous reporting system logged 43 complaints in 90 days. Every single one investigated properly. 12 resulted in discipline. 14 in additional training. 17 found unsubstantiated but taken seriously. Within 1 year, Fort Harrison went from highest discrimination complaints to 0. Not because discrimination disappeared, but because culture changed. Because soldiers knew reports would be taken seriously. Because consequences became real. Other bases noticed, requested Anderson's protocols. The Pentagon made them standard. The Anderson Protocol, a framework for accountability, for dignity, for justice. Morrison's viral post became a training tool, shown to every recruit during basic training, a cautionary tale about assumptions and consequences. Bennett spoke at high schools as part of his sentence. Court-ordered presentations. I knew it was wrong. I laughed anyway. I wanted to belong more than I wanted to be good. That's the choice that cost me everything. Sullivan served his time in silence. Released after 20 months. Emerged to nothing. No family. No career. He worked construction at 39. Studio apartment. Bus commute. His son graduated from West Point. Didn't invite him. Had changed his name legally. Sullivan's legacy was cautionary. 15 years erased by enabling hatred. The military examined itself, faced failures, chose transformation over denial. Anderson's reforms became policy. Her courage became standard. 6 months later. Colonel Anderson's office at Fort Harrison. Early morning light filtered through the windows, casting long shadows across her desk. The walls told a different story now. Photos of integrated unit training exercises, diverse leadership teams standing together. Pride Month celebration on base. MLK Day ceremony she'd established personally. Anderson stood at the window looking down at Dignity Gate, the checkpoint where everything changed, where 3 men destroyed themselves in 30 seconds. She spoke quietly, words meant for herself but captured for history. People ask me if I regret going undercover that day, if I wish I'd arrived in uniform, avoided the humiliation. She turned from the window. I regret nothing, because that morning revealed a truth we needed to see. Racism doesn't announce itself with burning crosses anymore. It hides in jokes, in assumptions, in the comfort of looking the other way. She walked to her desk, touched a framed photo. Her mother in Vietnam-era uniform, her father in Desert Storm fatigues. Private Morrison didn't become a racist at Fort Harrison. He arrived that way. We simply gave him a uniform and authority. Sergeant Sullivan didn't wake up deciding to protect hatred. He'd made those small choices 1,000 times before in smaller moments. Anderson sat down, hands folded. The system failed because good people stayed silent. Because "it's not that bad" became permission. Because "boys will be boys" excused what should have been inexcusable. She looked directly ahead, as if seeing through the camera to everyone watching. But here's what I learned. Justice isn't about revenge. It's about accountability. It's about saying clearly and loudly that some lines cannot be crossed without consequence. Her voice strengthened. Those men lost their careers, their futures, their honor. They did that themselves the moment they decided another human being was less than them. I didn't take anything from them. I simply held up a mirror. Text appeared on screen, white letters on black background. In 2024, the military reported 1,200 plus racial harassment incidents. Only 4% resulted in discharge or prison time. The Anderson case changed that. Today, accountability is mandatory, not optional. The text faded. Anderson continued. Morrison serves 18 months in Leavenworth. He's unemployed now, living with his parents at 24. Applies to jobs constantly. Background checks reveal his federal conviction. No one calls back. She didn't smile, didn't gloat, just stated facts. Bennett works retail, paying his debt. He's enrolled in community college, studying social work. Says he wants to help people avoid his mistakes. I hope he means it. Her expression hardened slightly. Sullivan lost everything. His pension, his family. His children won't speak to him. He works construction for minimum wage, lives alone. That $500,000 pension he threw away? He thinks about it every single day. Anderson stood again, moving to the window. Fort Harrison is different now. We're a model base. Lowest discrimination complaints in the military. Not because we're perfect, but because we chose accountability over comfort. She turned back. I was promoted to Brigadier General last month. I now lead the Pentagon's diversity initiative. The Anderson Protocol is standard across all branches, every base, every ship, every installation. Her voice softened. But change requires all of us. To those who stay silent, your silence is a choice. It's the wrong one. To those who face injustice, document everything. Stay calm. Trust the truth. To those who lead, you set the culture. You enforce the standards. There's no neutral position on racism. Anderson walked back to her desk, picked up her cover, placed it on her head. And to everyone watching this, the military isn't broken. America isn't broken. We're learning, growing, becoming who we're supposed to be. But that only happens when we refuse to accept that's just how it is. She moved toward the door. That morning at the gate, I could have shown my rank immediately, avoided everything. But then we'd never have known who they really were, what they really believed. Sometimes you have to walk through the fire to see where the smoke's coming from. She paused at the door, hand on the frame. I walked through it, and on the other side was justice. The screen shifted to a final message. If this story moved you, share it. Not for me. For the next person who needs to know that dignity matters more than rank, honor matters more than hierarchy, and justice will always find its way to truth. Comment with your own story. When did you witness injustice? What did you do? Subscribe to Black Voices Uncut for more stories of justice served, wrongs righted, and truth that always comes to light. Because these aren't just stories. They're reminders that we all have a choice. Stay silent or stand up. Anderson's final words appeared as text. Here's what I want you to think about. If you saw what happened to me that morning, if you were one of those recruits standing in that crowd watching me be humiliated, Would you have filmed it as evidence, or would you have looked away? Because that's the real question, isn't it? Not whether you'd ever be like Morrison. Most people won't. But you'd be like the dozens who watched and said nothing. Your answer to that question defines you more than you know. The final line appeared alone on screen. So I'll ask again, what would you have done?
At Black Voices Uncut, we don't polish away the pain or water down the message. We tell it like it is because the truth deserves nothing less. If today's story spoke to you, click like, join the conversation in the comments, and subscribe so you'll be here for the next Uncut Voice.